Hello and welcome to the Daily Rift. I'm Stormo and we're just loading in. Had a couple of network problems just before I got disconnected from the game, so hopefully that won't happen again. So let's see how we go. I'm going to try and get a couple of these done today because I've been a little bit behind on my videos lately. This is going to be up the same day it comes out. And yeah, should be pretty cool. I've got a lot of work to do today, so try and get as much of it done as I can. I have spare time too, which is great, so I can actually do some recording. So that's basically my plan for the afternoon, which is good. Woke to the rather sad news that Terry Pratchett passed away overnight. One of my favourite writers. Started reading his books when I think I was in about year 7 when I first read Reaper Man. Which is a really good book. I'm not sure it's the one I'd start with. It's one of the later Death novels, and if you don't know anything about Discworld, there's like, how to say it, there's a whole bunch of sort of sub-series in the whole Discworld series that concern different characters, and Reaper Man is one of those sub-series that concerns the character of Death, who is probably my favourite character in Discworld, actually. I imagine that's true for a lot of people. Because it's just such a great characterization of the concept, and actually incorporating the character of, the classic Grim Reaper into your story and making it not just a character, but in the case of Reaper Man, the main character, I always felt was really clever and really cool. So yeah, it was a bit sad. I've read a lot of the Discworld novels, of course. I'd say I've read more than half of them, but I haven't read them all. I don't know exactly what numbers, because I went on a reading binge when I was a teenager and read a whole bunch of them. And I've read a few of them since then, most of the more recent ones. I think the last one I read when it was new was probably Going Postal, actually. So. But yeah, I try to keep up here and there. I've still got to read some of the later ones like Unseen Academicals and things like that. So yeah, one of my favourite writers. And I guess, in a way, we sort of knew that this was eventually going to happen, this kind of news, especially after he announced the embuggerance, as he referred to it, some years ago. And so it was always on the cards, I suppose, but it's still a bit of a shock. Quite sad to hear that he's passed away. So yeah, that's sort of the memory I have. I actually met him, strange enough, many years ago at a book signing here in Melbourne. Me and my dad went in and we got, I think it was a copy of The Fifth Elephant signed. It was either The Fifth Elephant or The Last Continent, I can't remember which. And we got that signed by him and had a little chat and a little joke with him, as you do in those kind of author signing scenarios. And he was great, just that brief minute, and he was just nice and friendly and really funny. Like, literally everyone who was in that queue that day walked away laughing because he'd said something funny or he'd written something funny, everything like that. And yeah, just such a great author and such a huge loss. Like, I guess for me, the big thing with Terry Pratchett was that by the time I was in year 7, so basically by the time I started high school, I'd already read the entire Lord of the Rings. I'd read The Hobbit. I'd even read The Silmarillion. Like, I read The Silmarillion in grade 6. So, and to me, that was kind of what fantasy was. And I love those books, and I always enjoyed them. But then I was in class in year 7 one day, and the kid who was sitting next to me, like, I suppose my friend at the time, he was sort of like reading this, and he's like, "Oh, have you read it?" And I was like, "No, I've never read this." He's like, "Oh, you should read it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And after he returned to the library, I borrowed it, and I read it. And the book was Reaper Man. And I read it, and I just loved it. Like, I'd read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I'd actually read, actually no, I hadn't read, I think it was Tom Sharp who wrote the Wilt novels. I'd read some of the Wilt novels, possibly by then as well. But this was just really good, and I read it and I was like, wow, this is like, something really cool. To me, it was basically Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but in a Tolkien-style fantasy world, even though Pratchett's fantasy was quite a lot different to Tolkien's fantasy. Like, I guess in a lot of ways he showed me, at least as a writer, that there could be a lot more to a fantasy setting than just than just, you know, elves and hobbits and dwarves and orcs and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, that's cool too, but it isn't for everyone, I guess. And, you know, and reading the Discworld novels, and one thing that you get in the Discworld novels that you rarely get in any other type of fantasy of any kind, I suppose, is that there's actually a development and a progression of technology through the books. And you can see that Ankh-Morpork actually evolves from a much more medieval city into something more resembling, say, Victorian-era London and things like that. And it's something you don't notice if you read the books over time as they progress, but slowly these ideas get introduced. And whenever Pratchett introduced something new to one of the books, it would remain there in the later books. Not in a way that you would have to read the early one to understand what's going on, but it would just be a background. For example, one of the best examples of that is the Clax system, which gets introduced... Oh, geez, I've even forgotten which book that's introduced in. But it stays there for every book after that, and it's referred to again. And that kind of thing was really clever. And of course, with that, he also built up this sort of cast of characters from book to book. Like, it starts in the early days like Colour Magic and Light Fantastic with Rincewind and all that kind of stuff. And you can sort of tell the Discworld hadn't fully been fleshed out that far back. Like, it's probably not until... for me, it probably wasn't until about Witches Abroad that I started to really feel that the Discworld was being fleshed out in a really unique, sort of interesting way, where you had the 2 witches, or the 3 witches, sorry, and all of the characters involved in that. And then there's the City Watch novels, which I've always loved. I think those are probably, to me, they're the strongest Discworld novels, are the City Watch ones, the Ankh-Morpork setting and all that. Like, I love Death, probably is my favourite character, but I think as books, Pratchett was strongest when he wrote about the City Watch. I suspect because he was on a little bit more familiar territory, if that makes sense, with it, than with some of the more fantastical elements. That said, there's actually some really cool standalone Discworld novels that don't fall into any of those primary series. It's always worth going and reading Pyramids, which has never been followed up on in any way, and is just a really good standalone novel, and well worth reading. And I've never read it, but apparently Small Gods is like that too. I've never actually read Small Gods, so it's one of the ones I really should catch up on. So, I've never read more either. I should really get around to reading more, because I think that's the first Death novel, something like that anyway. Or is it Eric that's the first Death novel? One of them. But, yeah. And so, yeah, Discworld was a huge thing for me growing up, and still is. Like, I read it well into adulthood. I haven't read one in years just because I don't really read a lot of books these days, and I really should get back into the habit of doing that. I am reading one at the moment, actually, which is William Gibson's latest novel. So, but yeah, in general, I'm a big fan of Terry Pratchett, and it's just a shame to hear he's passed. One of my favourite authors, definitely. Like, I don't think I ever would have listed him in my favourite authors, weirdly enough. Like, I should, but I never think of it. Like, someone asks me my favourite authors, I'll say William Gibson, James Ellroy, and I won't even think of Terry Pratchett. Same way I don't even really think of Stephen King, even though he was another writer that I read a lot of when I was growing up. But I suppose Stephen King's a bit different in that he was just, everyone has read Stephen King. You know, and it's just something you go through when you're a teenager, is to read Stephen King novels. Yeah, I haven't really kept up with Stephen King stuff either, but Terry Pratchett was the same, I guess. I probably read more Terry Pratchett than I have Stephen King. And I've read a lot of Stephen King. So, anyway, it was a rather quick rift, wasn't it? I was going to spend more time talking about Terry Pratchett. Oh, that's 100% bona fide and upgrade, so I'll switch over to that. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the socket in it, which is a bit annoying. Nothing else here is particular. Nothing else is of particular. Oh, hang on. What about that? Maybe? Maybe. Maybe not. Anyway, that's today's Rift. Thank you for listening to me rant about Terry Pratchett, and I will see you all next time.